Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season 2 of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me professional wrestler Raché Chanel, who hails from the fashion center of the world, might I add, and that is Paris, for those who don't know. And according to Taz, that's how it goes. So, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Andrew.
I
It's
am very
Raché
excited
Chanel.
because you've been tearing it up, obviously. I think everybody
Thank
knows
you.
you from AEW, and I think that's kind of your big break, and a lot of stuff beyond that we're going to talk about as well. But I am super curious how you got into wrestling because you have a long history in wrestling that I think is
Yes.
underlooked significantly.
Yes, I've come from humble beginnings. So I started wrestling in 2008 at Texas All-Star Wrestling, right north of Houston in Humble, Texas. So I started there, and I really didn't have like my character and stuff. So that kind of came with me over the years. But I kind of, kept going with it, playing with it, being creative, and that led me to what I'm doing right now. So
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, because I think this is super interesting. I mean, it's not that you just started in 2008. You've gone from All Star Texas. You've trained at Booker T's place.
right,
You've done stuff down in Florida. You've done stuff in the Monster Factory, which is in sort of my backyard in the Northeast. Obviously, you had some stuff in the Ring of Honor in their dojo, and then there's some other places I'm sure that you've trained at and everything. And so I am curious because obviously going from Texas to Jersey and everywhere in between, different schools, different, I
mhm,
guess, territories, regions have different ways they train. And so, what
right.
was that like for you getting a mixture of everything and also getting a mixture of different competitors and different
Yeah,
styles and different way people train? Because it is different down in Texas than it is in New Jersey.
yeah. The Texas scene is blowing up right now, though. But especially like pre-COVID, like Austin was hot. San Antonio is pretty good. But for me, I knew that I didn't want to just stay limited to just working in the Texas scene. Like I want to kind of get myself out there. So kind of going up north and trying to working with different styles because I kind of had to believe in myself because if you believe that you can hang with other people, then you want to kind of challenge yourself in that way. You want to work with the best and you want to kind of hone your craft, and kind of get better as you go. And that's why I, kind of travel, got myself out of my comfort zone just to kind of, get out there and get better.
And what was that also like? Because obviously, I mean, I don't know how connected Texas is, but I know Boston and New England is massively connected on the indie scene. I mean, you got Beyond, Chaotic, Limitless, and you got about three
Mhm.
other, four other promotions. You
Right,
know,
right.
New York, New Jersey. New Jersey, there's almost a promotion every single little town. Some of them are good, some of them are bad, but obviously there is a sense of better competitors in certain
Right.
areas, especially if there's like 10 promotions. It tends to be a
Mhm.
hot spot, and Jersey is that. So what was that like even to be in that scene and get in there? Because obviously I don't know how Texas is when you started in 2008 and all the way
Right.
up to about 2015.
Mhm.
But what was that entire experience like, knowing how connected the Northeast is?
Well, it worked out for me in so many ways because just being in Jersey, I was in driving distance of the Ring of Honor dojo. So that kind of opened up a whole entire world for me, and that by itself. So when you can be somewhere we can have opportunities and be seen on a certain level, that just you just have to kind of be at the right spot. That's really what it comes down to is kind of being where you need to be to get seen, to get doors open to you.
To even further talk about that, because obviously Ring of Honor is one of those promotions. I think
Right.
MCW is also another one
Yeah. Hmm.
that kind of big companies look at in many ways, and they have either a spoken or unspoken relationship. And O'Shea Edwards was on my podcast a while back, and what he's great. He
That's
is
my
so,
guy.
you know
Yeah.
Christian Casanova just got signed, and I'm just waiting for him
Right.
to get signed.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
just a matter of time, and I'm calling it now publicly. And what he was saying about the dojo when he started going is that he just needed
Right.
that extra layer of polish on him. It wasn't that the raw talent wasn't there.
Right.
It was the
Mm-hmm.
fact that the talent was there, but needed to be a little bit refined and polished up. And so I think that's what Ring of Honor does in many ways. And there's been a bunch of people who I feel have gone through that. Savage Gentleman, Lady Frost are two also that I feel
Right.
sort of fit into that category in many ways. So what was that like? Because it was very much getting that extra coat of polish on.
Right. Right. Well, I unfortunately I wasn't there too long. I was on there for maybe like a couple of months, but I did have an opportunity to work the champion at the time, Kelly Klein. But that wasn't, they were on the road in Atlanta, so that was an opportunity that came, out of nowhere. But being in that dojo, like the level of competitiveness is like everybody wants to do good, everybody wants to get better, and to be like TV ready. So that's the mindset of, I have to get polished so I can look good on TV. So that's basically that's the point. Like that's the premise, is to be, as ready for TV as possible and as crisp as possible as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that's something that people forget about with wrestlers is that there is two sides. There's the indie side, and
Right.
then there's also the WWE, AEW side at this point. And then there's also sort of the third side, which is
Mm-hmm.
a lot of stuff now is not necessarily on TV, but it's
Right.
treated in many ways like TV, where a lot of stuff is streamed on IWTV, High Spots,
Right.
a Title Network, I want to say.
ITV.
Yeah, IWTV.
Yeah.
It's so big. Fight TV as well is
Right.
another big
Right.
one. And so, what was that like? Because I think that's an element of training with wrestlers that is forgotten. That hey,
Mm-hmm.
how do you actually know that you're selling to TV? Because now everything is being filmed.
Well, it's different when you're just coming from, just on the indies, like not thinking about TV. Like on the indies, it's more so you're working the crowd. And so there's not really a focus on hard cam or like the cameras that are, roaming or anything like that. But when you're working for TV, you have to have like your entrance has to be, a different kind of entrance. Like you can't just come out there, run around the ring and just, tag all the fans, but it's more like you have to have your pose once you walk out. It's just everything has to be done intentionally with purpose, and just the entertainment factor is a little bit different and clean and polished rather than just doing you just have to think like TV mindedness when you're kind of getting ready for that opportunity.
We're going to talk about AEW because
Yeah.
AEW is somewhat the hybrid in that, and we're going to talk about it in a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
But do you feel though that that has changed even with how things are streaming on IWTV and the internet
Hmm.
and how things like that and things like Beyond Wrestling, where they get
Hmm.
a huge amount of people watching them, but it's not television.
Right.
Limitless Wrestling has been killing it on the road,
Mhm. Right.
and it's treated like TV. And so, because
Mhm.
obviously you came in 2008, and I don't think anybody could have imagined what
Right.
COVID would look like, and more importantly, though, starting 3 years ago, the fact that IWTV has legitly exploded, and it's a major competitor in many ways. I don't want to say it this way because I don't think it's a competition to WWE or AEW, but it's an amazing alternative
Right.
in many ways. And that you can make the argument that that entire network is like Impact right now in many
Yeah.
ways.
In many ways, yeah. But I think another honestly, the biggest factor is with this COVID situation, because there has to be an adaptation from working on the road and getting people to come to your shows, because now everything's streaming. So we had to kind of adjust because of COVID, and the benefits of it has been enormous on the independent circuit. Like we can just stream and people can watch the product. So that just it's not fortunate, but it is fortunate in the fact that there's a creative way using technology to get your brand out and get eyes on different independent wrestlers.
Yeah, and I think it's also benefited in many ways AEW, and I don't know if AEW's entire purpose was AEW Dark, but I think it's been very much taken straight out of the indie playbook in
Yeah.
so many ways. But I don't want to talk about AEW yet because there's so much more to
All
talk about.
right.
Because I want people to know you before you get to AEW.
Okay.
Because there's so many matches that you've had, and
Right.
I think it sort of started in 2007 with you in many
Hmm.
ways, and there's a bunch of stuff before, but that's when I felt you started getting noticed in many
Right.
ways. And I think the best few matches to start with is your match against Rachel Erling, who's Paul
Okay.
Erling's daughter, in case nobody made that connection, and Barbie
Yeah.
Hyden in a three-way. And obviously
Yeah.
Barbie's been around for a while.
Hmm.
Rachel is going to be something sooner rather than later. And obviously that's a three-way with some serious star power in it.
Right. Right.
And obviously that match went a certain way. But what was that even like? Because this was when you were starting to get noticed. And I think this was
Yeah.
when he was saying, okay, now I need to start paying attention. Because that's how I viewed it, and that's my
Yeah.
opinion on the issue.
Yeah, well, so I think something that's very important about that match, like it was at VIP Wrestling, it's kind of in the Dallas DFW area. But what kind of stands out for me is just I was doing my Wild Thing Raquel Vaughn character. And so I had like the pinstripes going on. I was, working my baseball gimmick. And so it's special to me because no one I chose that gimmick because there's no female who's going to say I'm a baseball player in the wrestling locker room. So I just kind of use my creativity. You try to have some fun with it, try to be as different as possible because I'm thinking, if I do something outlandish, I might get eyes on me. I might get, people to start talking about, oh, this is different. Maybe, we can invest in something like that. So that alone, just me kind of believing in my creativity and saying, you know what, I'm taking a risk on myself and doing something crazy. But if I can work with, Barbie, work with Rachel and have a great match, maybe more people can start talking about, Raquel.
So to even talk about that, because obviously there's a saying in wrestling where Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't start out as Stone Cold Steve Austin. Warhorse didn't start out as Warhorse.
I bet he didn't.
Now I'll be honest, Jake Parnell, in case you didn't know, and Warhorse might shoot me because he follows me on Twitter, but he had some serious matches and he was over before he became Warhorse. But obviously he's now super over beyond
Right.
anything that's imaginable.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
obviously talking about gimmicks and talking about character evolution, do you
Right.
feel that you had to be that female baseball player
Mhm.
before you became this
This.
and the fashion icon that you are, and Raché Chanel, and that where that evolution needed to happen, and
Mhm.
sometimes that has to. Do you feel that sometimes you have to try a bunch of characters till one fits?
Mhm. Well, when you're kind of in the character, you don't really it's not like I'm thinking about the next one because I'm in this one. So at that time I was doing the baseball character. I came from Booker's and previously before the baseball character, I was I was a nun character. So I was going from a nun to, well, we can't really market this to, okay, well, let's transition. What can we do? And I was like, I love, Wild Thing, Rick Vaughn. So I was like, okay, let's do that. So I'm being I'm being this baseball character, and I would get different feedback, things like that. And so I kind of opened my ears to it, and like maybe what should I do? Should I keep it? But when I started this one, Raché Chanel, it was more so, well, I can't really be, something that doesn't really, according to some people, is not feminine. So, well, let's give them some femininity. And so that's what the Raché Chanel is like. They want something more girly. I can give them something, and on top of all of that, so I can do, I can adjust if I need to. So that's what this is, and I'm open to, like, if this doesn't work, I have something else in the bag too. So it's just more, you have to be open. Like, because like some people, it may fit, it may not, but I think this is working right now.
I agree. And before we get into why it's working, all that stuff, I do want to talk about a few more matches because I think people haven't seen a lot of your stuff.
Yeah.
And I know that you've had matches working with Thunder Rosa, both in a
Right,
team. And I think Thunder Rosa is one of the best wrestlers in the world.
right, 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 right.
And I know that you've had matches working with also Alley Cat, I think as
Hmm.
part of Team Thunder
Yeah,
Rosa. And so I think Alley Cat is massively underrated and has
right.
proven how good she
Hmm.
is. I think, did she just move to Texas or the Midwest, I think?
I
So
yeah,
I
but
think it's her gear now. She's like wearing the Texas flag.
yeah,
So I think,
but the thing about her, Andrew, is she's kind of from the Texas scene originally, but once she went up northeast, she blew up. So she got in areas where she got eyes seen on her that got her more over, on the indies as well. So it's kind of getting out of that one region kind of opens up doors too.
and I think you've also had some matches just singly with Thunder Rosa. So
Right.
that what was that like wrestling with her and against her? Because obviously I think she's one of
Hmm.
the best wrestlers in the world, as I
Oh my
stated
goodness.
before. And it is very much a privilege to wrestle with amazing
It
wrestlers,
really is.
especially as you're rising up.
Well, another thing is I work at Thunder Rosa, her promotion, Mission Pro, and right outside of Austin and San Antonio. And so, like, she exemplifies professionalism in the wrestling business. So she's always someone who I kind of looked up to and aspired to be, because before the Wild Thing Raquel Vaughn character happened, I went to one of her seminars in Dallas, and she kind of just gave a plethora of information that kind of sowed seeds into me. Let me get my character, let me kind of get on social media, let me play around with gimmicks and promos and things of that nature. But being in the ring with her like helped me prepare differently, get more focused, and especially just on wrestling as a whole, just my business.
Yeah, and even talk about Mission Pro because obviously Mission
Mhm.
Pro is very highly regarded
Yeah,
in many
yeah.
ways. And I don't know if it's like invitation only, but obviously when people drop Mission Pro, it's a big deal. And also, it's the way Thunder Rosa runs it, and she demands an extremely high standard.
Yes.
And I
Oh,
mean like top of the top here. And
right.
so what was that like for you to be in that promotion, have that invitation, and
Right.
have that clout that goes with it? Because it does carry a lot of weight.
Right.
It's kind of like if you have to fill out, only 20 promotions that you could
I know,
wrestle.
right?
That's
Mission
that's
Pro is on.
that's one of them. You think long and hard about punching it because Warren Buffett says this about stocks. You'd think long and hard if you had to only pick 20 stocks to make money on. Mission
Right.
Pro is if you only had 20 promotions, it's a long and hard punch.
That's it. Yeah, I think it's another just to be around just an all female, locker room, and then everybody's bringing their A game. That's what Mission Pro is about. Like, all the matches are great. And so when you have that kind of talent, rising to the occasion, you have to step your game up as well. So it's an honor to be at Mission Pro. It really it's just been a great experience overall.
And you faced Red Velvet as well.
I
In
know, yeah.
so what was that match like? Because Red Velvet is something
Yeah.
else. To put it
Oh yeah,
nicely.
oh my goodness, she's great. Oh my goodness. We had a really, really great match. I think it was an 8-minute match. And Mission Pro, he was like, let's bring it. And the fans enjoyed it, and hopefully, they left happy, watching that match, because we both kind of, she's on AEW, I did AEW Dark, and to see kind of both of us kind of face each other, because we didn't wrestle each other at AEW, but for the fans to see that there at Mission Pro was a treat for them as well.
And again, we're gonna get to AEW.
We're going to get to AEW
There's so
later.
much more we have to talk about because we have to
So
set up
much
AEW.
more. Yeah, we gotta build it. We gotta build it.
So, and since we're sort of talking about legends, and I consider Thunder Rosa a legend, you also got to wrestle Jazz as well. And Jazz is still wrestling. Jazz still has it. And what was that like? Because I mean, that's like going
Oh my
old
goodness.
school
Oh my goodness.
WWE, like real, like 20 years back wrestling.
Yes.
And
Oh
that's
my
kind of a cool like childhood dream type of
Of
thing as
course.
well, where it's always
Yeah.
fun when veterans wrestle new people. Anthony Green was on, or August Gray, and he went on, the you know 80s tour pretty much, wrestling all these wrestlers, and then
Yeah.
he's great, like Stevie Richards, Victoria, Gangrel, I think he wrestled, and I think he wrestled a few other people. And so
Okay.
obviously super, super cool. And obviously I think fans appreciate it too when they see
Yeah.
the young people wrestling the veterans in many ways.
Yeah.
You've been around the block. And also you probably learned a bunch of stuff as well in that match.
Mm-hmm. Oh my goodness. So, all right. So there was a Friday night Bayou Independent Wrestling. I worked Thunder Rosa that Friday. Saturday, I was supposed to have a different opponent, but they couldn't make it. And we were coming from Mississippi going towards, I don't know, Baton Rouge, I think. But they didn't have anybody for us. So the promoter was like, well, let me see if we can get Jazz to come in. And she came in. I don't know. She was coming close by, I guess. And I was like, I get to work Jazz. Like, is this is this really happening? So, but I always looked up to Jazz because I'm from New Orleans as well. And she was like, she's from New Orleans. So I'm like, that's somebody I always looked up to when I was younger. And I get to wrestle somebody I looked up to all those years. It just, I didn't think it was going to happen that day, of course, but it happened. So I was so excited. But when we came after the match, she like I think she was more just kind of nothing. We didn't plan anything crazy. It was very simple. She was like, we don't have to do all these crazy things. Like just keep it simple, and that's all that you have to work slow. And I'm like, that kind of advice I kind of use when I wrestle now. Just work slow, keep it simple, nothing crazy, stay safe, don't hurt yourself, things like that is what's going to lead to longevity in the business. So I don't want to do anything crazy, that I can't work later down the line. So it's just great advice to try to soak up as a sponge, as much information as I can from a legend.
And what was that like for you on a professional level? Because
Right.
obviously, on a personal level, you're working a legend, you're working somebody who's been around forever, somebody who is obviously
Mhm.
run circles around where you are in your career
Right.
at the moment.
Right.
But also, it does get eyes on you. It definitely gets attention. People say, okay, I know who Jazz is. I don't know
Right.
who this wrestler is, maybe, but
Right. Right.
go on YouTube and, oh,
Mhm.
now I kind of get a sense. And so it
Yeah.
does add some credibility and I guess some justify and standard. And I
Right.
hate to use the word clout, but I think
Right.
clout also.
Clout.
And there's a word here where it's just slipping my mind, but essentially almost social credibility, I think is the word to describe it, and verification as well. So what
Yeah.
was that like in opening up doors? Because this is just
Yeah.
one of those things that kind of
Right.
do it.
Right. Hmm. Like, so when I started the Raquel Vaughn gimmick, that's when I really was, kind of trying to get over the hump, I guess, and really kind of believing in myself, trying to, I was chomping at the bit, trying to get my name out there, trying to get over, trying to, give myself, just get more recognition, I guess. And to have Thunder Rosa and then Jazz, back to back like that, it kind of that helped me a lot, especially when I was, like I said, chomping at the bit, trying to see what do I need to do to try to get over and all that stuff. So that really kind of it did bring validation, I guess. But like I said, I had to have that just to believe in myself that if I can hang with them and I can go, then maybe I really can, get to a next level. And that helped me a lot. It was more personal, but it was still professional too. But it's professional. I was there, but I had time to reflect on a personal level on my own outside of it. But just to soak in that information, take it with me, and let that carry on, and still have more goals for myself year after year to kind of get, you know, trying to get out there.
And to talk about taking it to the next level, I
Right.
think the place to talk about is
Mm-hmm.
Rise. Because
Right. Right.
that is the place where
Right.
mostly women wrestle on Rise.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
occasionally they'll throw a guy or two into a match.
I
And
know.
you worked with Britt Baker, who's in
Right.
AEW, and Leva
Yes.
Bates, who was on my other
Yeah.
podcast a while ago. And Leva's great. And
Yeah.
so, what were those two matches like? Because obviously,
Mm-hmm.
this is sort of, both of these women were just starting to get into their prime. I
Right.
mean, Leva was in her prime at this point and still is, and Britt was climbing up the ladder
Mm-hmm.
really
Mm-hmm.
efficiently. But obviously, both were pretty big in those rides. So, what was that like for you, getting a chance to work in Rise and then work with both of these women?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another thing. Maybe like younger wrestlers can learn from. Something I did was just kind of invest in myself, invest in the seminars, travel. Because so, like I didn't know I was going to wrestle Britt. I didn't know I was going to wrestle Leva. I just go to the seminar, kind of work hard during the seminar, and if they get you booked against one of their talent, that's an opportunity for you. So when those opportunities came, you can't get that on everyday basis. Like it's not every day you're going against the rise talent, So to have those opportunities, like I said, is believing in myself. And if I can go and listen and, kind of work with my gimmick, that's all I can do at that point. Cause like Lee was kind of gimmick based too. So she kind of had fun with it. And Britt kind of liked it too. So that's all I was just gimmick based, and I'm still kind of like that too, but it's a
So,
different character.
so one of the things you just mentioned is that going to seminars. So obviously, I don't know what the scene looks like with COVID, and I think it's pretty
Right. Oh yeah.
clear it's complicated during COVID, but prior to that, there was a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of wrestling seminars
Oh
run
yeah.
by current wrestlers, former
Yeah.
wrestlers, bookers, promotions. I would
Mm-hmm.
also imagine that I went to a seminar for non-wrestlers at one point, and that was which
Okay.
was cool. It was about commentary, timekeeping, refereeing.
Okay.
So super actually interesting because there's a lot of stuff that goes on beyond just in the ring. But how does that all work and what is viewed in that and why is that important? Because I think that's something that a lot of wrestlers don't understand, and I think a lot of fans have no idea what we're even talking about,
Oh
or
my goodness.
they might have a slight idea, saying, "Oh, they heard or saw something on Twitter about it," but they've never actually had any inkling of what its insights look like.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it kind of depends on the exposure that the company brings and the opportunities and who has eyes on that company. Like there's eyes on Rise and there's opportunities that that will present itself. So if you can kind of take a, I don't say it's kind of taking a chance on yourself, but in a way it is because like I was like when I was first starting to wrestle, I was like I didn't know like, oh, well, how do you get to WWE? How do you get to Ring of Honor? How do you get those things? And there's like it's it's like step by step by step by step by step kind of thing. And one seminar can open a door to you getting booked at a major promotion. And so like I would attend Rise seminars, Evolve seminars, like different things to get seen, different ways to kind of network with other wrestlers to kind of work at these different promotions. And it just sometimes opportunities open up, but it's more about preparation and getting prepared for these opportunities when they come because you never know what might happen. You don't know if you get booked and you might job out in the main event. You don't know what's going to happen, but it just you have to stay ready and stay prepared.
And speaking about opportunities, obviously AEW is probably the big one. We've been avoiding
Right.
the elephant in
I
the
know
room.
the room.
I think it's safe to say that's where most people know you from.
This is
It's the biggest platform that you've been on
right.
so far, and so AEW is a very smart company.
Yeah.
I think they've realized the deficits in WWE. And I think naturally they have some problems, but obviously they're a new grown company, not to
Mm-hmm.
be caught down the middle.
Right,
But how
right,
did you get involved with AEW, and how did that all come about?
right,
Because AEW is doing something very interesting where they're pulling
right,
out of the indies for their main roster. They pulled massively out of the indies. I mean, they pulled like 3, 4 people out of Beyond. They've pulled out of down Georgia. They pulled
right.
out
I know.
very much from all over. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously, it's super interesting in that front. But then they do AEW Dark,
Right.
which features both their main roster and signed talent with, people who are on the indies who are making a splash. And they're
Right.
almost treating it like a live tryout. I mean,
Right.
Lindsay
I
Snow is great.
know. Wow. I never really thought of it that way, but technically it is kind of like a live trial, I guess, but I never put those two together, but kind of in that aspect it is. But I didn't really think, I would have, much success. I was just, honestly, I was in the COVID funk, I guess you call it what it is. But like I didn't know what was going to happen with the wrestling world. But like I said, I just kind of got myself ready and just took a chance on myself and said, I need to be on TV, especially with this gimmick. So I was like, well, let's see what we can do. Let's show
So,
something that's never been
well,
seen
how did
before.
it come up? Because obviously, did they just reach out, or was it saying, "Hey, we just want to,
Hmm.
book you for like 1 or 3 matches,
Right,
and then
right,
we're going to see where we're going to go with you with this," or "Hey, we got AEW Dark, and we got to fill up a bunch of
right,
stuff
right,
on
right.
it, and that we just want to introduce our main roster talent to not main
Hmm.
roster talent." Like, how did that all come about? Because obviously, you know they're now running shows, and I think they're running it
Yeah,
in Jaguar Stadium or whatever that's
right,
called,
right,
a bunch of
right.
them. And so,
Mhm.
very interesting position during COVID to be in, where you're getting called, it's up on YouTube, it's
Right,
getting like 40,000 people watching it on a weekly basis live,
right,
not to mention that it stalls playability going later. So, I mean, it's a big spot.
right.
So, like, hey, we're interested in booking you for this little thing called AEW Dark. Like, how does that work? Like, because I think that's what people want to know.
Well, I let me see. I previously I did like a WWE Extra Talent before, so I kind of assumed it was something like that, But I did know on Dark that they did have girls from the independents actually working the talent, so I kind of assumed, okay, I might get a match. I just need to get prepared. It might not be too long, but just do what you can do, work your character, do that kind of thing. So I kind of network myself, find a way to kind of send emails out, send text messages out, do what I can do. I said they told me you can come on this date. I showed up on that date, and then I got invited to come back, and then invited to come back again. So I just kind of bet on myself on this one. I didn't really have anything else to lose because, like I said, I've been in the business for so long, and I'm like, well, let's see if we can go to the next level. Let's see if we are TV quality, if we're TV ready. Let's see what we can do. And that I was just trying to work and do the best I could. Like I said, it was COVID. I didn't really expect much, but good things did happen from it. So I'm grateful and I am thankful. Yes.
And so to even talk about some of this stuff, because these matches were not squash matches, they weren't BS matches. I mean, you went against Big Swole in one match, you went against
Right.
Allie and Brandy Rhodes, and you had DeMonte as a partner, in those matches. So what was that like? Because obviously you're being uh, put up against real competitors, and you're being put up against some of the big acquisitions that AEW picked up.
Right.
And
Right.
then also, DeMonte is big on the indies. She's great.
Right.
And so,
Right.
and obviously she's connected to Kira Hogan, for
Right.
those who
Right.
don't know. And so that's something also to keep in mind as well. So
Right.
obviously, you're working with top people
Right.
on AEW Dark. A bunch of people are watching
Yes.
it, and what
Right.
was that like? Because I would imagine that that couldn't happen sometimes on the indies, where you can't now work with Big Swole on the indies.
I know, right? That's not gonna happen. But I think another thing is I had a match with let's see, I had not only those matches, but I had
Well,
matches
we're going
with
to talk about one of these
we're
other
gonna talk about
matches.
these other matches. I know.
I'm just dealing with it in piecemeal.
Okay. Piecemeal. But you're right. I don't. It's not like on the independent level you can wrestle the AEW talent, and so I think another thing, it has to go with the locker room. Like they're very kind of inviting, and the locker is not as strict. I guess it's more kind of laid back, relaxed. But you still have to be, professional. Yeah, it's extra talent, but you just have to kind of just go in there, do your job. You still have to follow the protocol, I guess. But see if you can add your element, add your seasoning in there, just to add your stuff to make it stand out. And then you're still accomplishing the goal, but you're just adding your little sauce. So that's what I kind of add my character. That's my little sauce in town, so people can take that away from it. So it's not just me just showing up getting squashed. It's, she has she has a package going on.
And speaking about this, because
Yes.
hopefully I'm going to be dropping what you wanted to speak about.
Yes.
You had the match against Hikaru Shida, who was the women's champion at the time. It still is, I think. And you come out, and I think like you're all fashioned up.
I know.
You have like the shades on. You have your Chanel bag, and what winds up happening is that you're like tiptoeing around the ring. You're doing this thing, and then Sheeta's not playing at all. And then like you're like sort of like jumping up and down and going off the ropes. And this is why I want to talk about this, because this is like when your character, I think, really came out. And I know it existed before this, but I think it's the moment that everybody knew. And pretty much, I think the moment that everybody knows is that you have her in the ropes.
Yes. Oh, God.
You are combing her hair.
Yes, I have to go.
with the comb, and it was one of those moments where it's like it hasn't been done before.
I know.
and I equate it to an Orange Cassidy moment where it's like, this hasn't been done before. How was this not done before? This is an amazing moment, and it's all these photos, and you see she does this thing, and like the referee's allowing it. And so where did that entire concept come from? Because I think that's the moment that made you and changed the landscape in many ways. And I think it was amazing. And the fact that it was on AEW Dark, and I'm sure it was spoken about on Twitter. And I saw it a few days ago, actually, of all things. And I'm just upset that I didn't see it live, because it would have been perfect. But anyhow, I think this is something that's the game changer in many ways.
Yes. Thank you so much for building it to something that I didn't think it was. But because when I was just kind of before the match, Cody, like if I saw him or something, he'll just be like, work your character, that kind of thing. And Dustin is the agent for the matches. So I'm thinking, well, this is my idea. I know what Sheeta's going to do. We know she's going over. But as far as, what I can add to the match, I can tie her up in the ropes, and I can comb her hair. And for that moment, I didn't think it would blow up as it did. But I'm thankful that in like the match, I ended up watching on YouTube. It has like 300,000 views on YouTube. And I was like, are you serious? Like, I didn't think it was going to blow up as it did, but like I said, I'm grateful and I'm thankful. But I just thought, me combing her hair, it was just something random. But I didn't think it would be, like you said, an Orange Cassidy moment, like something that's never been done before. I just think I'm just being me and doing what I normally do. And if I was, that's what I would do in the match. But I didn't think it would blow up, but it did. It did.
And even go further off this, because I think this is something that people in life don't understand, is that you got to experiment sometimes also, Because
True.
the worst thing that would have happened is that it would have just flopped, and it's only a match,
Yeah.
and
Right.
it wouldn't have hurt anybody. But the fact that it exploded, Kurt Angle spoke about this, where sometimes you gotta just try something and see where it
Right.
goes.
Right.
And I think in this case, you tried something, and obviously
It
you
worked.
did it so well. It also helped that Cheetah's hair is a certain way too. I
I
think it also helped as well. And so I think it was one of those moments. But obviously, what was the reaction after the match among wrestlers, if they were reacting in any which way? And then obviously, what was like the social media thing? Because
right.
at that point, I think, as I stated, this was the moment you were blowing
Yeah.
up. And I would
Right. Right.
imagine you were getting a bunch of Twitter
Yeah.
notifications and a
Oh
bunch of
yeah.
other stuff going on, a bunch of people looking out, and people DMing you or checking out your
I
Facebook page. And so obviously that could be complicated in its own right as well.
right.
Because unfortunately, some people are really good at this and some people aren't, and it's going 0 to 60, things can go wrong real quick. So what was that
Sure.
like in just handling all the pressure and all that stuff coming at you? Because it was 0 to 60 out of nowhere in many ways.
Yeah. Well, that you're right, because that was like that's when the tide turned for me. That's when like that character really, there's like, oh, we got something that's really super different on this side of the world in the wrestling world. So it like the Twitter blew up, Instagram blew up, got more followers, things like that. But it's still, it's that's nice, get some clout, I guess, for some people. But I'm still trying to get signed somewhere and trying to develop my business. So it's nice to get those things, but I still, on a serious note, trying to get signed. So it's not like I'm just doing this for kicks and giggles. But it's good that it gets that response. But from me, I know what I'm trying to do. So it's nice, but it's job's not finished. From my perspective, yeah.
Do you feel though that it is this idea of you're a step closer now
Right.
to it, and that this is just verifying and this is just confirming you're going in the right direction?
Mm-hmm. But I think it's just everything. Like when I started the Wild Thing Raquel Vaughn gimmick, that's like everything I started when I did a nun character. Like everything I'm gonna do is gonna be so different, so left field, that somebody's gonna have to notice. And somebody's gonna say, oh, this is so different. But some people, I don't know if they can, what can we do with this character? What can we do with this person? So that's just what I'm gonna do. And maybe people can, identify something so different than what's on mainstream and what they're currently used to seeing. So I'm just trying to offer people, something, like you said, that's never been done before. Like no one's never been this gimmick that I'm doing right now. So no one's going to wrestle and use a comb spot in a wrestling match and try to, so that's what I'm going to do. And, hopefully, people keep catching on to it and more moments come out.
And even building off of this, you've had a bunch of other matches in AEW.
Right.
Obviously, you were involved in the AEW Tag Team Women's Tournament.
Right.
First round against Big Swole and Little Swole, where you teamed up with of all people, Leva Bates. So what was that like, the two of you working together? And obviously, both of you have evolved significantly since.
I know.
And obviously, Leva's the librarian. You're obviously Raché Chanel. But at the same time, it's kind of crazy how, going back to Rise, how Britt Baker and you were wrestling, and then 3 years later, you leave as well wrestling, and then boom, you're all here in a ring to some degree. So what was that like, and how it's a small world?
It really is a small world. But for that match, I think that was the first time I did the running knee running boot and the designer boot. So that was my first time doing it to Little Swole, I guess. And so that was that moment kind of helped me kind of get my move set together, see what I'm going to do with because I did a little prance, but I incorporated the designer boot into it. So I think that kind of went well on Twitter as well. But just, I didn't know it was like a full circle type thing with the Rise, but it really has been. So that really helped going into the locker room, knowing I've met these talent before, and I can work with them, and it made it easier in the locker room, I would say, and easier in the wrestling ring, knowing that I saw all of them or met them all at Rise.
And also, I think this match was on regular AEW, from my understanding, versus Dark. So what was that like? Because a bunch of this stuff was on Dark, and this was, I think, regular. So it's kind of a cool moment in many ways as well.
Yeah, that was definitely. I think this was like I think it came like a Monday night special or something like that they were doing.
Yeah.
But it was. It still was. An honor to be a part of it. Like I didn't really think they were going to do and incorporate me in it. I thought it was just going to be working Dark. But even to be in a match with Leva was a privilege and an honor to be a part of the tournament. I didn't expect that, but I'm thankful that opportunity came my way.
And then also another cool match. And there's a few more we could talk about, but what I want to talk about is Nyla Rose, because I love Nyla. I think Nyla is killing it, and she's great.
Yes.
She is the meanest in the locker room professionally. Probably one of the nicest people unprofessionally. I think that's the all I'm gonna say, and I think most people would agree with me at that point. Mm-hmm. If you know anything about wrestling, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. And obviously, Nyla is a big girl to put it nicely. And I say this to describe, and you're a little petite. So that matchup exactly because obviously it does open up a huge move set. It opens up a certain story. It opens up a variety of different things, and also it makes that for a hell of a lot more interesting match than people the same size going at it. I mean, I'm just saying, as a fan, I would rather see Alexa Bliss versus Nia Jax.
I know.
Alexa Bliss versus, Sasha Banks. It's not as interesting.
It's a different dynamic, yeah. When I first started training, I would always go against it. Everybody was bigger than me. There wasn't much females that I started out working. So I would go against bigger guys. And so I knew how to post, and I knew how to sell and things of that nature. So when Nyla wanted to throw me up and pick me up and all those things, I'm like, okay, I know how to post. I got you. I love, selling is something like one of my strong points, strikes and all those things. So it was just like Nyla was very very open to, me doing this designer boot, the smooches and all that in the match. But as I did in kind do what I have to do as well, and posting and selling accordingly. So it just, those are my favorite matches. Like people who are bigger than me, I love working people that are bigger because I can sell more, I can post more, I can do those, those kind of things. And it's more fun for me. And that's one of my favorite matches there, actually. And it was just like a 4-minute match. But that was one of my favorite matches at AEW Dark, was working Nyla. Yeah.
And I think AEW Dark is the entire turning point of your career. I really think it is, because just the amount of eyes that get on you, this idea that it is very much on YouTube. It is super accessible,
right,
especially in a time where people are cutting cable. I cut cable. I don't have cable. It's because everything I want is not on cable. And if I want a show, I'll just legitimately buy it on my for $30, and it's cheaper than my cable bill. And I don't watch things. So obviously Dark, I think, in many ways has more appeal because it's free on YouTube. And so I think this is going to be the turning point. And I think that in many ways, and I think AEW understands that that's why they put a bunch of their talent and mix it up a little bit, because clearly a bunch of people are not watching AEW or NXT or anything else. That they're watching stuff on, their computer, and it's super interesting. So I think Dark has a lot more appeal than almost AEW. Regular Dynamite has in many ways. It's free. And I think unfortunately, people are gravitating more and more towards free. So I think that's going to be something that's going to be the game changer for you, and it's a nice body of work as well. And then there's one more match I want to talk about, and that's
All
the
right.
Pan African World Diaspora Wrestling title.
Oh, okay.
And I was there when Trish won it back in DC at a show, pretty much in an art studio. Craziest setup, craziest thing. No ropes or barricades. Legitimately super close to the ring, and it was
Yeah.
an amazing show. The entire show was crazy, and O'Shea was there. It was a super interesting show.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Billy Dixon was there, and a variety of other people were there, and just
Yeah.
amazing, amazing show when I used to live in DC. And so, obviously, what was that match like? Because obviously,
Mm-hmm.
Trish Adora she's a beast.
Yes.
She's a beast. To put it nicely. Um,
Yeah.
and so, what was that like to get to wrestle her?
Oh wow. But it's just so many different, like you said, styles and dynamics. And one of the, like, someone came to me after the match and they were like, I've never, seen you that aggressive before, and somebody on that same level just as aggressive. So to have those two like strong pairings coming together, that was very interesting. It was very interesting to say the least. But that lariat, yeah, yeah, I took that. It wasn't pleasant. But yeah, much respect to Trish Adora, definitely, after that match. But it was definitely, I think it was her first time, I think, wrestling in the Texas area, and she kind of had a great time with the fans, things like that. Like, she was super over with the crowd and everything like that. So I'm like, well, I didn't have to do much heel work, but it was a fun match. It was definitely a hard hitting, aggressive match, to say the least.
And obviously, the title was on the line, and that
Yes.
is very much a DC title.
Mm-hmm.
Hate to say it that way. So obviously, the fact that it got
Right.
defended in Texas, it got
Yeah.
defended in the middle of America, and
I
now
know.
all the kings. I mean, politicians are was sort of a nice touch in it in many
I
ways, and also I feel that when you put a title up in front of something, it instantly
Right.
creates more importance.
True.
If that makes sense,
True.
even if it's not true, even even
Right.
if, even if it's not what's going on behind the back scenes and all that stuff, it sort of, I think, registers to all of us, and I think it
Right.
elevates the match just naturally,
Definitely.
and
Definitely.
especially when you're reading through Cage Match or anything like that, because it just stands out. Also helps that they
Mhm.
told it on Cage Match, but I digress right there. And so obviously, I think this is one of those matches that people should see
Mhm.
because it's an
Oh, most
intense
definitely.
match to say the least.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Like I said, it was a very hard hitting. Yeah. It was hard hitting. That's all I can say for fans. Just go watch that match. It was hard hitting. That's it.
It's also probably one of the better matches so far of 2021. And
Hmm.
given COVID and all that
Yeah.
situation. So on the topic of COVID,
Yeah.
obviously I'm a fan of wrestling. I watch a lot of wrestling. I also do a lot of Comic Con convention stuff
Mhm.
as well. And obviously those two things are cousins as far as COVID and how things are being run. So I am curious, since 2020, how have you been affected by
Right.
COVID, both on a personal level and even on a wrestling level? Because
Hmm.
obviously it has done a lot of
Right.
damage to wrestling. It's
Hmm.
done a lot of damage
Right.
to
Right. Right.
entertainment as an entire sector.
True.
And I mean, we've seen it with AEW, and we were sort of hinting at it, where there was little fans or no fans for a good
Right.
chunk of 2020 with AEW. WWE, very similar. I mean, the Super
Right.
Bowl just happened. There was 8,000 people at the Super Bowl. I mean, that should be a pretty good indicator
Telltale sign. Yeah.
that things are complicated. So I'm curious how it has affected you.
Right. Well, on a personal level, it was more reflective, I guess, like just to see what I want to do for myself personally, and kind of enroll in like different like educational programs on a personal note, like outside of wrestling, like going back to school and taking online classes. So that's kind of what I did on a personal level, and kind of think about my future, outside of wrestling, and making preparation for that. But professionally, like the AEW Dark, that opportunity, like that was my breakout moment, So, and that happened during the pandemic. So it just, like I said, I'm grateful, but like it during a pandemic, like when things are shut down, you don't know where you're going to get work. There's no indie work. Like I said, I just bet on myself and trying to get seen on TV. So that's all I could possibly do.
And to even go off of that, and I'm curious, like, where do you even think wrestling is going at this point? Because obviously, 2020 was a wreck and did a lot of damage. Some promotions are going to come back. Some promotions are going to come back even stronger. Some promotions have adapted and evolved and pushed forward. And then other promotions are just saying, hey, we're going to come back and we're going to be fine. And we just didn't run because we just didn't feel comfortable running. But the question that it becomes is that, what do you think it's going to come back as? Because even though we have supposedly 200 million vaccinations, I think it's safe to say that vaccination plan is not going to go as intended, because it never does. It never does. Things are going to happen. Also, it's slowly rolling out. People are saying they're now able to schedule their vaccination stuff. I mean, like my parents are older, and they're now starting to be able to schedule it for like 6 weeks from now. So obviously, it's complicated, and it's going to take a while to vaccinate 300 million people in America, let alone the world. I think that's also the misconception with all this, is that wrestling, while it's in the U.S., we're not in a U.S. economy anymore. We're in a global world, and the rest of the world has 7 other billion people plus in it. So I'm curious how you think shows are going to react to that, because while a promotion in Texas might be local, things like AEW and WWE are global companies. So I think that's something that I'm curious, because you're an insider. I'm an outsider. I don't know how locker rooms have been handled. And so I know Limitless does a lot of testing, and I know a bunch of other companies do a lot of testing. But even still, things break out. So I'm curious how you view that and where you think it's all going.
Yeah, well, I'm not, deity or anything like that, so I can't really predict the future. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know, but I think a lot of people are going to maybe adjust, I guess, with having fanless shows and things like that, and just kind of do like the streaming with IWTV, Fight TV, things like that, just until there's like a normalcy going on where people can come back to shows on a regular basis. But
do you think that there's going to be big shows coming back so quickly, or do you think it's going to be more like tiered and small shows where they're going to do maybe fanless and maybe like 100 people, then maybe like 200 people, and then eventually, because the way I view it is that I don't think we're going to have a 500 or 1,000 person show so quickly. I think that you could have a 100-person show. Social distancing. If you and your friends are all sitting together and you all came together, I think that's perfectly fine. But then you have stuff like that, and I also think that and correct me if I'm wrong and stop me at any given time, but indie definitely subsidizes their income by selling merch.
Yeah.
And so I don't even know how that's going to work, because, maybe somebody doesn't want to be near each other, or, speaking to somebody where somebody said, hey, we're going to go away from cash, and it's going to just be all credit cards.
Yeah.
And so that's going to be very different as well. Where, we're going to just have less cash around. And so I think it's going to be super, super interesting in that regard, on that. So, I'm curious how you feel about all that and where that's going, because
you just said it. You said it all, Andrew. Because like you had more, I guess more information and more thoughts on it than I have. I haven't really kind of thought that far along, and as because I think that's more so on society as a whole, because even like other sports, like NBA, I think they're trying to get like dogs to kind of sniff people and things like that before they come into the arena. So I think it's just based on when COVID's going to be done, kind of, to gauge when things will go back to normal, and as far as what's going to allow fans back into the buildings. But it's just to me, it's like a day by day, week by week kind of thing until things clear up.
Yeah, and I think that's what it's going to be, and I think that it's also going to be complicated. I think as we head into the spring and the summer, there's going to be more options on the table, and then when we get back to the fall next year and the winter next year, and even the next few months in the winter, it's going to be a bit more complicated. And I think things like fanless shows are going to be existing, and I also think that healthy promotions are going to survive, and unhealthy ones are going to die, which is called capitalism. So welcome to America, everybody. That's the way it should work. But enough about me pro capitalism and promoting it. Because in this process, I know that you started a bunch of stuff going on. I know that your YouTube channel is working. I know that you're back up on social media, so that's good.
Yeah.
So I know you got something with Twitch, and while I'm streaming on Twitch right now, I don't understand Twitch. I am bad at Twitch. I am Twitch illiterate. Apparently, it's all the place where the cool kids go, and I don't understand it. I don't understand how to connect my Discord to my Twitch. I have a life, everybody, beyond this.
Yeah.
So what is your Twitch about? Because I know that's something that you're building out.
I know.
You have like 33 followers, right?
No, I haven't really been on as much, but I think the first time I was on there, just kind of like an introduction to people. And like the second time I was kind of trying to do the bilingual thing and kind of saying what I was doing in Spanish. But like my goals for the year, but I was trying to read it and like saying it in Spanish. So that was something I wanted to do, but I'm in school, so I'm trying to study and I don't really have that much time. But I just need to make more time to get back on Twitch.
So on that note, obviously, as I stated, you're back up on social media. It was down for what, like a day?
It was down. Well, I think I deactivated Facebook. I think I kind of shut down once COVID hit because, like I said, I was kind of doing some self-evaluation, planning for the future, going to school. So I kind of got off, and people were like freaking out and like, "Oh, Raché Chanel deleted all her." My guy, it was off in March. Like I've been deleted it, but I got back on Twitter and then Instagram once I kind of got back to AEW. But I still kind of kept Facebook off, but my Messenger's on. But I kind of got off because like just like local politics and local drama I didn't want to be a part of. So yeah.
So having said all that, obviously you're back on Twitter. I know that much. I know that I think your Instagram is still active and it's still up because I just checked it yesterday. And then obviously, Twitch. So where can people find you? And also, do you have any merch? Because I think you have some merch, right? Yes. Everybody's got merch now. So
everybody has some kind of merch.
Where can people follow you on Instagram, follow your Twitch, follow you on Twitter, and then also where can people find your merch?
Yes. So Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, everything's at Raché Chanel. And for pro wrestling tees, it's the /Chanel number 5. So Chanel NO5 is for my pro wrestling tees.
And obviously, I've been saying it to everybody, and this is super important. You have to support indie. Yes. That means that people have merch, buy their merch. Right. If people have a Patreon, support their Patreon. Obviously 8x10s, all that stuff, super important because it's great to support somebody and follow them on social media. And if you are in a tight spot monetarily, or you're taking care of your family and you're taking care of your mortgage, your rent, making sure all 4 walls in your house are standing sturdy, you got internet, electricity, water, food, please take care of yourself first and foremost. And that's when you should be following people on social media if you're in that situation and money's tight or you're just harboring money to survive. But obviously, you have to support people economically to the point where buy their merch. It's super important. It goes a long way. And it does make a difference because, especially on the indie wrestling scene, and even with comic books, you're buying somebody's product, which then goes back into them or subsidizes what they're doing.
Right.
And so, if you got extra money, you got $25, drop a shirt, pick it up, spend the money, do it. It goes a long way. You don't have to buy every single shirt, but definitely if you buy one, makes a big deal, and it's super cool. And also, having said everything I just said, if you're buying a shirt, you should also be following on social media. Again, you don't have to follow every single social media. If you're a big Instagram person, follow on Instagram. If you're big on Twitter, follow on Twitter. But also, when you follow, you should be commenting too, because it does help and make a huge difference in that regard as well. And so, obviously, you should be active. And you don't have to be super active, but retweeting a tweet, super helpful. Super helpful. Commenting, hearting Instagram, commenting on Instagram. Definitely follow on Twitch. You never know when people are going to be on. I'm not sure how Twitch works. I think you can subscribe on Twitch or send Twitbits or something.
Something like that.
I have no idea how Twitch works, so I am not the person to be promoting Twitch here, even though I am streaming on Twitch. So clearly. But you could also support economically on Twitch, and I'm sure everybody who's watching is going to figure it out on their own. So having said all that, I'm going to give you the final word.
Oh, what is the final word? Oh, I know what it is. Smooches.